Okay, imagine this. You've been responsible. You've done everything personal finance gurus told you to do. You skipped vacations, you cut your Starbucks, you stopped ordering food delivery, you even told yourself no every time you wanted to buy something fun. And after months of suffering, you finally did it. You built your emergency fund. 6 months of expenses, let's say $15,000, sitting safely in your savings account. And you feel proud, you feel secure, you feel like you're finally winning. And then life happens. Your car breaks down, you have a medical bill, your job cuts your hours, so you pull money from your emergency fund. And suddenly, you're back at zero. And now you're thinking, wait, what was the point of saving all that money if one emergency wipes it out? And here's the weirdest part. You start feeling guilty, like you failed, even though the emergency fund did exactly what it was supposed to do. But then you realize something much darker. That emergency fund didn't protect you. It just delayed the pain. And that's when you start asking the question nobody asks. Is the emergency fund actually making people poorer? Because what if the emergency fund advice that everyone repeats isn't wrong, but it's incomplete? And what if the way most people build an emergency fund is quietly destroying their financial future? Yeah, today we're talking about the emergency fund lie nobody talks about. My name is James, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, investing, and why the safe financial advice most people follow keeps them stuck forever. If you're someone who is trying to save money, build stability, and stop feeling like you're one paycheck away from disaster, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're breaking down one of the most repeated money rules on the internet. Build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, and why that advice might actually be holding you back. Look, if you've watched any financial video ever, you've heard the same line. Before you invest a single dollar, you need a fully funded emergency fund. And usually they say 3 months of expenses minimum, 6 months ideally, 12 months if you're really responsible. And this sounds logical, because emergencies happen. But here's what most people don't realize. The emergency fund advice was created for a world that doesn't exist anymore. A world where wages rose every year, inflation stayed low, healthcare didn't cost your soul, and you could actually rebuild savings quickly. But today, the emergency fund rule is creating a new kind of financial trap, and it's subtle, because it feels like responsible advice, but in reality, it's keeping people broke. So what's the lie? The lie is not that emergency funds are useless. The lie is this: if you build an emergency fund, you'll be financially safe. That's the lie, because emergency funds don't create safety. They create a temporary illusion of safety. Here's the thing. Most emergencies are not one-time events. They are repeated financial attacks. Car repairs happen again. Medical bills happen again. Job loss happens again. Family emergencies happen again. So if your entire plan is save money, wait for life to destroy it, repeat, that's not financial security. That's financial survival. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the emergency fund system is basically a treadmill. It keeps you busy, it keeps you stressed, it keeps you feeling like you're progressing while you stay in the exact same place. Let's talk numbers. According to the Federal Reserve's survey of household economics, a huge percentage of Americans would struggle to cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. That's not a rare situation. That's normal. And here's why that matters. If someone is struggling to save $400, telling them to save $15,000 before investing is basically saying, You're not allowed to build wealth until you already have wealth. It's like telling a drowning person, before you can swim to shore, make sure you have a life jacket. Bro, they don't have one. That's why they're drowning. Now let's talk about the part that personal finance gurus conveniently ignore: opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means every dollar you put in savings is a dollar you're not putting into assets, and assets are what create wealth. So let's do the math. Let's say you want to build a $20,000 emergency fund. You decide to save $500 per month. That will take you $20,000 divided by $500 is 40 months. That's over 3 years. 3 years of doing nothing but stacking cash. And what does your cash earn? Maybe 4% in a high-yield savings account, if you're lucky. Meanwhile, the stock market historically averages around 8 to 10% long-term. Now you might be thinking, James, but investing is risky. Savings is safe. Yes, savings is safe. But here's what most people don't realize. Savings is guaranteed to lose purchasing power over time because inflation is always eating it. So if inflation is 3 to 4% and your savings earns 4%, you're basically earning nothing. You're just running in place. And if inflation spikes like it did recently, your emergency fund becomes weaker every year. So the question becomes, are you saving money or are you slowly burying it? Here's the psychological problem. Emergency funds feel like control. They make you feel responsible. They make you feel like you're doing the right thing. But they also do something dangerous. They teach you to worship cash, and cash is not wealth. Cash is just temporary. Cash is just a tool. But people start treating their emergency fund like it's sacred. They refuse to invest. They refuse to take risks. They refuse to build assets because they're terrified of losing money. So they hoard cash and they stay broke forever. Because wealth isn't built by saving. Wealth is built by investing. Saving is defense. Investing is offense. And if you only play defense, you never win the game. Let's be honest. The 6 months of expenses rule is completely made up. It's not a law of physics. It's not guaranteed protection. It's just a guideline. But people treat it like it's a magic shield. Let's say your monthly expenses are $4,000. 6 months means you need $24,000. Okay, what if you lose your job for 9 months? What if you have a medical emergency that costs $30,000? What if inflation rises and your expenses go up? Your perfect emergency fund becomes useless. So the emergency fund isn't safety, it's just a buffer. And buffers are good, but buffers don't build wealth. Here's what most people don't realize. The emergency fund advice is not wrong, it's just incomplete. Because the real lie is not don't have one. The real lie is emergency funds should come before everything. That's the lie. Because if you put your entire financial life on pause until your emergency fund is perfect, you delay wealth building by years, and years are everything. Because compound interest is time, and time is the real asset. The earlier you invest, the more powerful compounding becomes. Let's do a real example. Imagine 2 people. Person A, the responsible saver, they spend 3 years building a $20,000 emergency fund before investing. After 3 years, they start investing $500 per month. Person B, the balanced builder, they save $200 per month into an emergency fund and invest $300 per month immediately. Now fast forward 20 years. Person B has a huge head start because they started compounding early. Even though Person A did everything right, they lost the most valuable thing: time. And compounding doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about how early you started. This is where it gets really interesting, because most people don't lose wealth by making bad decisions. They lose wealth by waiting too long to make good ones. Now let's get real. Emergency funds are great, but the way they're preached keeps people dependent, because if your emergency plan is just cash, you are always one emergency away from panic. But if your emergency plan includes skills, multiple income streams, investments, credit strategy, insurance, support systems, financial flexibility, now you're not just surviving, you're resilient. Emergency funds are not the plan. They are one piece of the plan. Most people think emergency fund means money sitting in a savings account doing nothing. But real emergency planning is layered. Think of it like a castle. A castle doesn't have one wall, it has multiple layers of protection. Your financial castle should include Layer 1, cash buffer. Yes, you need cash, but not necessarily 6 months. Sometimes 1 month is enough to start. Layer 2, credit buffer. The credit card isn't evil. Debt is dangerous, but credit is a tool. If you have a sudden emergency expense, a credit card can buy you time. Time to sell something, time to adjust budget, time to avoid panic. Layer 3, insurance. Health insurance, car insurance, home insurance. Insurance is literally an emergency fund that you outsource. Layer 4, investments. This is where most people fail. Your investments are your future emergency fund, because when you build assets, you build options. Layer 5, skills. Your biggest financial security is your ability to earn, because money can disappear, but skills create money. Now, you might be thinking, James, are you saying I shouldn't have an emergency fund? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you should stop worshiping the emergency fund like it's a magic solution, because emergency funds don't solve the root problem. They only soften the impact. The root problem is most people have zero financial margin. Their entire life is built on a fragile paycheck. So the solution is not save more. The solution is build financial systems that create margin.
Here's the truth. The real emergency fund is not your savings account. It's your cash flow. If your income stops tomorrow and you have no other income streams, you are not financially safe, even with a $20,000 emergency fund, because eventually it runs out. But if you have dividends, rental income, side business income, YouTube income, freelancing income, now emergencies are smaller. Now emergencies don't destroy you because you have cash flow. And cash flow is power. This is why rich people don't panic during emergencies. They don't rely on savings, they rely on systems.
This is the part that frustrates me. The emergency fund advice hurts poor people the most. Because if you're low income, saving 6 months of expenses is nearly impossible. And when people hear that advice, they feel hopeless. They think, I can't invest until I save $10,000, so I'll never invest. And that mindset keeps them stuck forever. Here's what most people don't realize. The people who need investing the most are the people who are told to wait the longest. That's backwards. That's like telling the poorest people, wait until you're not poor before you build wealth. It makes no sense. So, what's the smarter strategy? Here's what I recommend. Step 1. Build a mini emergency fund first. Instead of 6 months, start with $500, then $1,000, then 1 month of expenses. This protects you from small emergencies, and it gives you psychological peace. Step 2. Invest while you build it. This is the key. Build emergency fund and invest at the same time. Even if it's small,
Because investing is not about money, it's about habit. Step 3. Create a survival budget. Know exactly what your minimum expenses are. Rent, food, bills. Not Netflix, not eating out. Your survival number is your real safety. Step 4. Build a side income stream. This is where it gets really interesting, because the fastest way to feel financially safe is not saving, it's earning. Even $300 per month extra income can change your life. Step 5. Upgrade your emergency plan. Once you have 1 month of expenses, then build to 3 months, then 6 months if you want, but don't pause your life for it.
Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine did everything right, saved $12,000 emergency fund. Then life hit him with a car repair, a medical bill, job reduction. In 6 months, that emergency fund was gone, and he felt like a failure. But he wasn't a failure. The system failed him, because his emergency fund wasn't a long-term plan. It was just a temporary shield. So instead of rebuilding the same way, he did something smarter. He kept $3,000 cash buffer and started investing monthly. He started freelancing. Within 2 years, he had emergency cash, investments, side income. Now, emergencies don't wipe him out because he's not relying on one bucket of cash. He built multiple buckets. That's real financial security. So here's the truth. Emergency funds are important, but they are not wealth. They are not freedom. They are not the solution. They are just one tool. And the lie nobody talks about is this. If your emergency fund is your only safety net, you are still broke. Because real safety comes from assets, cash flow, skills, flexibility, ownership, not just money sitting in a savings account. So look, if you're building an emergency fund right now, I'm proud of you. Seriously, that discipline is powerful. But don't stop there, because saving protects you from problems, but investing protects you from the future. And the goal isn't to survive emergencies. The goal is to build a life where emergencies don't ruin you. Start with a small cash buffer, invest consistently, build skills, build income streams, and over time, you'll realize something incredible. You're not afraid anymore, because you're not just saving money, you're building freedom. If this video helped you, hit subscribe and comment below. Emergency fund is not wealth, because once you understand that, you stop playing defense and you start playing to win. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.